Hello and welcome to Cage Fighting. Andy Gillard here. Hope you're all keeping well.
Evening, guys. Matt Guy, how are you all doing?
Evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you listen to this. Hello.
So, gentlemen, how are we feeling about the upcoming double bill of Captain Corelli's Mandolin and City of Angels?
Oh dear, I don't want to sound too like. I just, each film has its ups, its downs, and its in betweens for sure. I'm sure we'll thrash them out.
I feel quite warm inside.
Yeah, we'll see if that lasts until the end of this. I think we'll start with Captain Corelli's Mandolin, so let's dive right in.
When you fall in love, it is a temporary madness.
So, straight off the bat, what the fuck is this film? It starts in a little Greek village. There's a shirtless man firing off cannonballs around small children. One of the cannons hit Christian Bale on the arse. Christian Bale immediately gets it out for Dr. John Hurt and his daughter Penelope Cruz. How is that a fucking family? So yeah, great start to the film. We're off to a bonza beginning, I think, here. What do we think?
Well, I didn't think it was going to be like slapstick straight away. I knew nothing about this film like at all. And then when it started off with kind of a Mr. Bean-esque escapade, I just didn't really. I thought, actually, is this not the kind of film that I think it is? I thought this was meant to be a soppy love story, and not like a comic chicanery. I don't know about you, Stu.
I was exactly as seems to be the thing with all these non-explosive Nick Cage films. I'd seen the poster, I hadn't read anything about it, and that's all. I went into it thinking, and knowing that it was twinned with City of Angels as well. Thinking, well, there's got to be some romance in it and not nonsense. But it's yet again putting children in danger at the start of one of these films.
It's a running theme, isn't it?
It's like a theme like the tan-coloured cars. So
Yeah.
I was looking out for one just in case another one appeared in this, but no, sadly not.
Yeah, never mind. And obviously, the film starts and we get Cruz and Batman falling in love off the bat. Dr. John Hurt is not happy about this. He's very disapproving. Dr. John Hurt gives Cruz Chekhov's gun right at the beginning and warns her that war is coming. And he would know, after all, he fought in the Time Wars. Against Hurt's wishes, Cruz and Batman get engaged, and he promptly fucks off to go and fight in the war. Like, it's literally, here's the ring, I'm off. It's not the most romantic of engagement stories for them, is it?
Well, it's a story of the fear of commitment, mate. It drives a man. He's took the plunge, but then he can't. So he's going to go fight a war. And there we go. Do you know what I mean? It's a scary world out there, boys. As you're sure you know.
I think he was almost wrestling with the fact that he was not Welsh or he's not Greek or whatever he is in this film. Let's just get it out of the way straight away. That even John Hurt, they're just. I don't think we can go any further without mentioning it. That this is thinking that this was
my
a nice,
next note. Yeah,
thinking it was a nice love film, and thinking, oh, okay, something different. So then it was like Saturday Night Live kind of. You had better accents in Father Ted than in this.
One thing I noticed, and it's kind of accent related, the radio that they used to announce the war. How powerful is that radio? Because it was a British accent. Why didn't they just have a Greek accent giving the news? Why do they have to have a British person giving the news? I just don't know. I couldn't work that out for me.
That's not many radio stations stayed on air, so that's an actual thing about.
Oh, is it?
BBC World Service. I'll presume that's what that was.
Hush my mouth.
Yeah, because it was. So you think about it, the World Service and the BBC stayed on for a lot longer than everyone else because everyone was all blown up or scared of being blown up. So that was what I got from it. It could be completely wrong and it could be just more nonsense. You don't know, but I think there's a few things in this film that kind of historically make sense in a way.
Oh, okay. Right. Maybe I don't give it as much credit as I thought.
Yeah, I'll give it that one. Just off the bat.
So we're starting the film with an Englishman with what's supposed to be a Greek accent, a Spanish lady, and a Welshman, all just doing an absolute hodgepodge of somewhere in the Mediterranean. And now the Italians are coming to Kefalonia. Oh, we're getting Nick Cage with an Italian accent, lads. I was so excited. Except when I say Italian, I mean kind of Borat.
With Borat, but the first thing he says, which I'm gonna do the impression. I thought he was a Cockney because he went "fuck off," like it's like a proper like EastEnder.
Fuck off.
I mean, he took, how long was it? About 15 minutes before he even turned up. And I did wonder if I'd downloaded the right film to start with.
Yeah.
And he comes, you just expected him saying, it's nice, you like, and all this. Like, it's considering he's of kind of, well, I presume second, third generation Italian heritage.
Yeah. Well, he's a Coppola, isn't he? So, yeah.
That's what I mean. So you'd think he's got some kind of base background knowledge to how Italians actually speak, which would be helpful. But considering that everyone, there was a lot of the cast who were Italian as well, which doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it was a bit inexcusably bad, I think.
It was. I mean, that was the first moment. I mean, Christian Bale, fine, a young Christian Bale in this. You can excuse that. Again, it's lost for words moments already. We're on what, 10 minutes in.
Yeah. But what I want to know. Sorry, carry on.
You expect it of certain people, and okay, fine. You can kind of, yeah, she's Spanish. We know she's Spanish, but she could be Greek, and she could have learned. She could have been living somewhere else. You don't know. There's backgrounds to it, but for him to turn up, I burst out laughing when he opened his mouth.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same.
Part of me, I was excited at the idea of an Italian accent, but I thought it's Nick Cage. He's just going to be American, surely, but. He swung for it. I'll give him that. He gave it a go.
Oh, he certainly did. It wasn't a half-arsed attempt at the accent. It was just a half-arsed execution, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I was wondering, why have the Nazis sent a fucking orchestra to enslave this tiny Greek island? I don't quite understand why we've got the musical band of the Italian army here. It was a bit weird. And also, why is Corelli a captain? He says like he's never shot a gun before or anything. He's a pacifist who's in the army, but he's made his way to captain to look after a group of men. That was a bit odd, I thought.
That's true. I never really put two and two together with that. I'm not sure if it's a military thing in terms of like an education that he immediately becomes a rank of some description. Because I don't know if that's a thing. If they're trying to link it to something actually historically accurate, maybe I'm not sure, but. He certainly acts the clown as opposed to acts like the captain in a lot of this film.
Yeah, like some kind of civilian captain or something like that. Like, I mean, why they sent them there? I mean, they were obviously just there to just keep the peace. They weren't there to take over, because I know we're going to get into that later on. That it wasn't an invasion; it was more of a kind of occupation. Well, it wasn't. It was an occupation rather than an invasion.
Yeah.
So keeping morale high was. A lot of strategy went into doing certain things like this in certain places, whereas the others, they just bomb the shit out of them.
Yeah. The other thing I found quite weird, that as the captain, he was the one who had to go and stay at the doctor's house. Surely that's a grunt's work, isn't it? You just send the lowest man on the totem pole to go and do that. I thought that was a bit strange.
Yeah, it was the... how quickly the doctor kind of gave up his principles as soon as he could get stuff from the quartermaster. He was like, nah, fuck it, go on then. He was just like, it didn't take a lot of convincing, did he, to like give up his home and daughter's bed to as long as he got some medical equipment. It's not like they painted the residents of Kefalonia as being like really poverty stricken or really unwell, and there was like a mass amounts of like illness or disease on the island. Well, at least I didn't like see it as that. But he was so quick to sell his house, in theory, I guess, for these medical supplies. It seems strange.
Yeah, he didn't seem like he was the busiest doctor in the world, to be fair to him.
Yeah, well, like Doc Martin and like anyone out of Casualty. Like...
Yeah. So obviously we find out that Nick Cage has to go and stay with Dr. Hurt and Penelope Cruz. They think he's a dickhead because he's obviously on the side of the Nazis, so they're very mean to him. That is until they hear that famous mandolin sound. And all of a sudden, they just turn on a fucking dime. They're like, oh my god, he can play a tiny little guitar. We must love him now. Strange. Then we get the scene with the Italians on the beach, having fun with all the naked locals, singing their songs. And David Morrissey as well, who looks 14 years old.
He does look young, doesn't he?
At least he's the only one who puts on a convincing accent. I thought his German officer, like, you could listen to him and you could actually feasibly think, okay, he could be German if he wasn't immediately recognisable as David Morrissey, of course.
Yeah, he wasn't half as bad as some of the cross national accents that they've tried in that film, to be fair.
Mm.
As I said, that scene on the beach where they are singing because they are actually Italian, that was the only part of the whole film where I kind of bought into it. Because he kind of, his nonsense accent kind of got absorbed by everyone else's genuine accents.
I thought it was all very it was all very Greece for me. It started out on a beach. They were all singing and dancing and all loving. I thought, yeah, this could go into the Grease mega mix now. So now the Doctor and Cruz, they both seem to like Corelli and those on the side of the axis of evil. Maybe it's because I don't know a lot about this period of time, but I would have assumed that the people who were occupying the nation wouldn't be particularly well liked, but they were accepted and almost seen as friends to some of the locals. I found that really, maybe that's my prejudices on what was going on at that period of time. I just find it hard to believe that people would have rolled over and let them tickle the belly as easily as the Greeks did with the Italians there.
Yeah, it's a weird one because you had the occupation of Jersey as well, where this didn't happen half as much. But it, like I said, it did seem more like an occupation rather than a takeover, and they still let them get on with it. And it was almost a case of, because they're not actually real soldiers, are they? They're effectively a brass band. Has been sent there just to keep watching, keep a lookout, because you don't see anything even remotely bad happen until later on in the film. So if that's how they had been treated, and they'd come over and said, well, look, we're not here to cause trouble, just we're under instructions as well, which they effectively are, then it's like we're all in the same terrible boat together. Let's just get on. That's what I've always seen from my limited war knowledge, for how these things kind of panned out in certain places, where they just got on for the greater good. And then if you actually look at it, the greater good. A lot of there was a lot of Greek-Italian trysts going on for years on end, and the amount of Greeks and Italians who lived in the opposition country and stuff later on because of what happened there. It's just one of them weird moments in history that just happened.
You're right, though, Andy. In one of the notes that I've got down here, it's funny that they like you said, rolled over and had the belly tickles for a group of people that come over that are portrayed as being so buffoonish and silly, and obviously they don't know what they're doing, and they're portrayed in this like comedic way. Obviously we have a scene later on where they're on the beach and they can't put together the explosives correctly, and they're just singing and dancing, and there's no real actual physical altercations, but these people are just happy because they know almost straight away, don't they, what's happening, because as soon as the Italians go into the square, they already know that they're going to surrender. It's just that they don't want to surrender to an Italian, and they're already portrayed straight away as being kind of not to be taken seriously. They're already happy to surrender to the Germans as soon as a German turns up. I just think it's really strange how the Italians are portrayed in this film. I'm not sure if it's the genuine Italian in me that's maybe feeling a little defensive about the portrayal in the film. I don't know, but yeah, it was a strange one for me. Maybe it's because for what happens later on in the film, which we'll discuss, they need to portray them as being unable or inexperienced as soldiers.
I mean, literally the only thing I can remember from my GCSE history lessons was a joke about the book of Italian war heroes, and it's a one-sided sheet of paper.
Yeah.
So maybe that sort of plays into it, that they've got this reputation as being. Well, we do find out that they flip-flop. They change sides halfway through, as they did in the war in real life. They've got this reputation of not being not to be taken seriously when it comes to matters of war.
Yeah, it's a bit like the French as well, being surrender monkeys and just give up at the first opportunity and just bend over and take it. Exactly the same kind of thing that you just said. It's a reputation of war, which certain countries have got and still have. Well, who didn't come back for football? The French. Never changed.
So we next get a scene in the square where Captain Cage is playing a song on his mandolin, which he wrote for Cruz. They then kiss. How lovely.
It's lovely, mate.
The Italians surrender to the Allies, so the Nazis are stepping in. After 4 of his men get killed by Nazis, the Italians decide to fight back. In the real world, it took about a month between surrender and the Italians joining the Allies. But in the film, it took about a day. So really, it turns out that these musicians were well ahead of the curve when it comes to warfare. These are the true Italian heroes of the Second World War. The next 15 minutes just go pure Michael Bay. Like, this comes out of nowhere, because it's all been very low-key, not much is happening. Now, all of a sudden, we're getting explosions left, right and centre through this tiny little village.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite jarring when we've had absolutely nothing warlike to all of a sudden just get this huge battle happen.
Yeah, it's a bit like when we said a bit of Face Off a couple of weeks ago, where the first 20 minutes can be a film in itself, and it's made up of actually about 4 or 5 films spliced together. That's what this feels like as well. And I mean, I was losing the will to live before all the bang bang started.
Yeah.
And obviously then my eyes and ears pricked up because it's the fun starts now. But actually, I thought it was really well done. I thought having a war film in the middle of a love story actually worked for this. Whereas a lot of these kind of things, it's just, I mentioned when we talked about it before about Pearl Harbor, where that was built up towards the end of the film, and it was just like, well, there's no real point. Whereas this actually, and the events later on as well, it worked. I like this part of it. How it was kind of spliced together didn't work that well, because it did just jump from nicey nice ITV2 Sunday night drama to Friday night Channel 5 chaos. So and there was no in between. But I suppose if it was an invasion, then there wouldn't be an in between. So I'll let that one pass.
Yeah, I mean, this was the highlight of the film for me, by far and away. There wasn't really much. There was nothing happening. I never really bought into their relationship. That not enough happened between them to make me think that they would have actually loved each other. But by this happening, it actually introduced a bit of jeopardy towards the characters. You thought, well, maybe someone could actually die or get seriously maimed here. So this is the first point in the film where I actually paid any attention to what was going on.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And it's the first point in the film, really. I mean, prior to a few scenes before, when they're asking to surrender their weapons, etc., that we actually get a little respect for Captain Corelli, because he's the first time he actually shows any seriousness and any backbone in the whole of the story, really. It's the only time that, for me, again, it was quite interesting. I mean, and he did enough of a job that I wanted to know how this happened in real life, so I actually went and spoilt the film for myself, because I wanted to know how this happened in real life. And for a film to be able to do that, can only be praised in that way. It's invested me enough that I want to know more about it. And yeah, it was a bit hokey in its execution. We're talking kind of stormtrooper levels of inaccuracy with some people shooting, for example. But it was it was the defibrillator that the film needed, really, to keep it alive for me. Put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a box quote.
Yeah. So after this battle, the Nazis manage to round up all of the singing Italians. As they believe they're about to become POWs, a battery of German soldiers come out of hiding and gun them all down. As the Italians roll up to the site of their slaughter, Captain Cage recognises David Morrissey, who looks ashamed almost of what is about to happen. Are we to infer that David Morrissey's character was homosexual for Captain Cage? Because we have a few minutes. We have the scene at the beginning where they're on the beach and it's all summer loving. And then we get the scene where they're now about to go their separate ways and he asks him, "Oh, shall we stay in touch?" And then we get this scene where he looks almost bereft that this person is going to die.
Yeah, and even prior to that, there's the conversation when I think they're all sitting around of a night time and they're playing music together, and he's talking about, I think he's singing along and he's really getting involved with the rest of the crowd, and then he falls back into the German type, quote unquote, very quickly, and it's all about duty and everything else. And I think we're building up this. He doesn't know himself. He doesn't know. He's got an inner turmoil about what he believes is right and wrong, and he's probably fighting that against the kind of ideals of, you know, Nazi Germany and everything else. So there's enough there to have the conversation for sure for me. It would be so easy to pin the sensitive characteristics of their character to him wanting to be kind of homosexual for Captain Corelli, but when you watch it, you can't help think it. I think it's so subtle the way, and especially when he's asking to if they can keep in touch, he looks positively heartbroken. Do you know what I mean? When he's asking the question, I think we're onto something there.
I think this is a case of the fact that you two actually did film school properly, and I just kind of dabbled because not that way. Let's just get that clear right away. But until you mentioned it, it never crossed my mind. I just thought, oh, he's a nice young man. He's just been pleasant and happy. But when you think about it, it does it kind of signposts it a bit too much. And I'm quite amazed that even now that there's been no kind of gay World War II films, because it obviously would have happened somewhere. It must have done. Just by percentage alone, even though it was illegal in pretty much everywhere. I'm quite surprised it's never happened yet. But there's definitely, like you said, you can have the conversation about it because it's so signposted. But would it have been signposted at the time, or is it just because of our 2020 kind of sensibilities that we kind of just see these things for what they are? I don't know.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like at the time, would they have had the foresight to have played that off, or are we just seeing it because we're a more woke? I hate that term. We're a more woke people, and we know that things should be accepted as opposed to maybe back then, or even, and certainly when this film was set, wasn't the case. I'm not sure really, but that's how it appeared to me. I know that there's enough evidence there to suggest that, or to have the conversation about it.
I'd be interested to hear what David Morrissey has to say about how he played the character.
Mm-hmm.
I think, to be honest, of all of the characters in this film, he's the most interesting, and he's the one I probably want more story for, because we don't. It just touches on it, but I'd like a bit of an in-depth exploration on that character, because he was the only one who seemed to have any actual depth.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, Stu.
No, I just had a look, and this was 4 years before Brokeback Mountain, so the conversation didn't. For me anyway, I didn't really no one talked openly about that subject until that film came out for me. You know, I had gay friends at school, obviously, but it was never a kind of let's talk about it and it doesn't matter like it is now. It was still, even the late 90s was still very taboo. Even though we didn't care, but we were young. But for people, I think 2001, people going to the cinema in their 30s, 40s, I don't think they would have picked up on this. I think
maybe not.
No, I think it is. It's very clever.
I mean, Brokeback does feel like that was a sea change in the conversation around stuff like sexuality. So maybe you are right. Maybe this film was intimating it, but the conversation wasn't being had. Who knows? Like I say, it's something I would be genuinely interested to know more about from the director as well as David Morrissey. So, after the Italians have been massacred, Batman comes across all of the dead bodies once again, and he finds Captain Cage, who somehow has managed to survive this slaughter. Just because a guy stood in front of him, he's still going to get shot to shit. There's no way he's going to have survived that. It was ridiculous. So Batman then takes him back to Dr. Hurt, who performs surgery in the middle of night with no anaesthetic or any actual life-saving what's the word I'm looking for, tools, I suppose, but he pulls through, so we know that Captain Cage is going to live to fight another day, or not fight, as the case may be.
Live to meander another day.
Yeah,
basically. You are forgetting one thing though, Andy. Grabbing another body to save yourself from gunfire is a tried and tested way of surviving, a la Metal Gear Solid. Because you can grab somebody, survive as many shots as you need to, and it's tried and tested, mate. So, can we give the film a bit more respect, please, from this point of view?
Which was out before this film, so
yeah, there we go. He should have took influence.
Yeah, that's it. Jeez. So we get a second wave of Nazi attacks, and Captain Cage manages to escape with the help of Batman. We then jump forward to 1947. Kefalonia is back to normal. Cruz receives a package from Italy. It's a recording of someone playing the mandolin, playing her song from that fateful night. We then jump forward to 1953. I don't quite understand why they did these two jumps. I know why 53, because we then get the earthquake, which I believe actually happened.
Yeah.
So it sort of makes sense, but why did they have that mid jump? Because these aren't based on real people, are they, as far as I'm aware?
No. I mean,
unless the book may explain it. I don't know. I've not read it, but
it's almost like she listened to the record and it made her pregnant.
As all good music should.
Yeah. So yeah,
it's strange, wasn't it?
Yeah, it just seemed to be really clunky storytelling at this point. It was a bit, okay, we need to get this in, and we need to get this in, and we'll do it in 2 time jumps with no real reason, but let's do that. So we then get the ending of the film. So we get the earthquake, and then we end up with a weird shirtless man firing his cannon around children again. And then Captain Cage returns to claim his woman. The end. Like, we've kind of like razzed to that film when we look at compared to other films that we spoke about in our deep dives on these picture pods. But there really wasn't much to actually discuss. There's pretty much nothing to this film for me. What do you guys think?
It's very love film by numbers, eh? It's just woman has weird boyfriend, but then has a better offer, so goes with him. And then original boyfriend comes back, saves the day because he loves her so much, but then gives her over to him. He goes away and comes back. The end. That's all it is.
Yeah, it is.
And it's lazy in a way, because there could have been so much more put into the development of the plot. So, if the Italians had a bit more of a backbone in the film, they could have played off, some of the tensions between the Greeks and the Italians a bit more. But no, apart from a little snide comment here and there that get washed over pretty quickly, everyone's friends again. There's no turmoil. There's no tension. It's like you said about Jeopardy. There's none of it until the actual war scenes. There's no fight from any of the characters when it comes to the love side of it. It's so quick. I don't know if it's the fact that in the 21st century now, thanks to social media and online platforms, that people are spoiled for choice, but these people just seem to see one person that they like the look of, and then that's it. They'll just go for it, and they'll sit with that person for life. It seems in this film, it's just it didn't do enough to make you invested in the story and care for the fact that these people are in love with each other. The only thing that for me made me interested was some of the more grittier things in relation to the war. And we had a scene where one of the Greek women was attacked and hung, wasn't she, for being with one of the Italians. And that's actually a bit of grit, and that is something that made me think, actually, there's got a bit of substance here. But apart from that, I mean, why would you care about this love story? It's so flippy floppy. It's so quick and convenient that it shouldn't have been that it needed a war story to make this love film entertaining. It should have been a war story which had a slight side quest of romance in it, as opposed to the other way around for me.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, actually. It hung its hat on the wrong element, didn't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And this film is 2 hours 11 minutes long.
Yeah, it's a long old film.
It's not. I mean, this is. I mean, the old test was I did look at the clock a couple of times. So, and it was. It could have been anything. It could have been like a 3-part ITV drama. This could. And you wouldn't moan. But I'm not going. It's not as bad as Next. That's the best thing about it. But I'll try to think about it after, because I did in a weird way I did enjoy it because there was things to enjoy in it, and I will come to that in a minute. But if they'd just got the accents right, would it have made it better?
Yeah,
I think it probably would have done, because it wouldn't have been so nonsense. And I've probably said nonsense about 5 times already in the last half hour. But that's what a lot of this film was. It was good ideas that wasn't executed properly for whatever reason. I mean, you can say laziness, but it clearly wasn't lazy, because there was a lot of things in this film in the 2 hours that it was on. But I don't know. It was just.
You're right, Stu. You're absolutely right. Because
badly executed.
Because you're laughing at it. It takes away from anything that they were trying to build from a serious point of view, because you're sniggering at the accents, and you're sniggering at some of the silly things and some of the slapstick nature of it. So they needed to pick which way they were going with it. They didn't need, they can't have their cake and eat it, really, when it comes to war. You're either serious or you're not. You can't flip and flop between the two and expect your audience to be happy with it. And that's what this film did for me.
The best example of this, I think, Chernobyl, the Chernobyl series.
Yeah,
and how excellent that is. If they'd all put on faux Ukrainian accents, it would have been ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But because they played it straight, you either do one or the other. You play it straight, and you have actual people from the region, and you have subtitles, or you do it the Chernobyl way and just have it as English speakers, just being an English TV production in that case. Yeah. If they just had this as, these are Greek people, we don't need to have accents whatsoever, it would have been miles better. And I think it would have made, let's say it made more sense, because obviously it wouldn't, but you wouldn't have had the ridiculous situation of an English man, a Welsh guy, a Spanish woman, and an American Italian who can't speak Italian. It just the whole lot together just didn't work.
It was too comedic to buy into, wasn't it?
And it could have been fixed so easily. That's a frustrating thing for me, because at the heart of it there was a bit of heart. However cheesy that is, there was a bit of heart to it, and there was a decent amount of action, but it just didn't work.
And by all accounts, the source material it's a lot of people's favourite book. I've heard a lot of people talk about how much they actually like the book that it's based on. But if I was to see this film, I would never think, I'll go and read that book now, because I'm invested. I'd think, well, this is shit. That book ain't going to be much better, is it, surely?
Exactly. Yeah.
So the film itself, the Rotten Tomatoes score, it got an audience score of 50%, which is a bit high for what I thought it would have been. But the critic score was 28%, which I think is probably where I sort of sit. Is very much in the, 1 star, 1.5 stars kind of category. For the budget, we're looking at a film that cost around $57 million, and it just about made its money back with $62 million.
So
it wasn't really one, it wasn't really a successful one for anyone involved. And having seen it, I am not surprised in the slightest. So, the good, the bad, and the crazy. Stu, do you want to start the ball rolling on that one, mate?
The accents were ridiculous. For the crazy, it was just...
Yeah.
It ruined the film. The good... I liked how they kept certain things that were kind of historically accurate-ish. But, again, they didn't show it well enough that you believed it when you don't know anything about war history. So someone like you, Andy, who's not got that knowledge, you think, well, why would this happen when actually it kind of did somewhere in some places? The story itself would have been all right. It's just okay. It's not offensive. It's not a bad film. I probably wouldn't watch it. I wouldn't choose to watch it again. But if it was on, I wouldn't turn it off. But I think the accents completely ruined it for me. All I could think, I know it's not the same instrument, but I just kept thinking of when I'm cleaning windows every time he got the mandolin out. I couldn't get that thought out of my head. I thought, why? Why am I thinking of old George? But no, there was a lot of nice ideas, badly executed, but it was just, it is what it is at the end of the day. It made its money back and a bit extra, which is probably about what it deserved, really, for me.
Matt?
So the good, like I mentioned earlier, that the war elements kept me interested. It probably kept me from having a tactical pause in the film when I'll watch the rest of it another time, as it like all bad films tend to do for me, really. I was thinking, well, I need to do something else. I'll crack on with this another time. But no, it had enough elements that it kept me interested again. I wanted to know what happened in real life, and that there's got to be something in that to me, that it ticked enough boxes that I'm invested now. But the bad is predictably the love story got in the way massively for me. Like, just when I'm starting to really enjoy what's going on with this film, it takes it away from me. It teases me with the tip and then doesn't give, unfortunately. And so, for that reason, I'm out, as I say, in Dragon's Den. It just didn't really work for me. But for crazy, something we'll have to post on the Twitter, so make sure you're following Cage Fighting Pod. Is the cover art is edited to fuck. It's ridiculous. Like, you need to see. It's almost like how you would expect a North Korean dictator to be photoshopped and edited with like the softness filter ramped right the way up. Like, it just doesn't. It looks like he's superimposed onto somebody else's face. It's really
I've just
bad.
looked at it. Yeah, it's terrible.
It's really bad.
Now you mention it. This is what when I mentioned at the start of this. Going into it, just seeing the cover, I thought that she was Indian. I had no idea. So when it came up and it was Penelope Cruz, I was completely shocked. I thought, what? Because I looked at IMDb. I hadn't looked at the poster that well, and she looks Indian Asian on there.
Yeah,
and that doesn't look like Nick Cage.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't look
It looks
anything
like Zach
like
Braff
him.
grown up.
It's so soft, like the light. I don't know what they've done to it, or the actors had really bad blemishes on that day they were taking the photos or something. I don't know, but it just some of the marketing team must have had a field day with that one, or they were hungover or something. Because, they could have done they had Christian Bale looking like Che Guevara for a lot of the film, and they could have done something with that. Do you know what I mean? Let's build this up with a bit more tension. Than I guess it's one of those. Who are they marketing this film for? They're not marketing it for 18 to 40-year-olds for the war element. They're marketing it for probably an older lady to watch, really. I'm guessing that demo. So what are you gonna do with the cover? You're not gonna paint it out to be a war film. You're gonna paint it out to be soft and like kind of a bit more lovey-dovey, aren't you? Yeah, exactly.
I thought it would have been marketed. I mean, everything. It's probably in the. We should have watched the trailers really for this answer, but for me, it would have been a perfect date movie because you got the love story for the women, you got the action for the blokes. Again, just past the 90s, remember, so in context. And looking at that poster, that's exactly what it looks like. They thought, oh yeah, I'll go and see that. It's a war film, but it's got love story, so it's got a bit of everything for everyone. But yeah, it wouldn't be marketed at mid to late 30-year-old blokes.
No,
to go and see this film on their own.
No, it wouldn't. That is very true. And that comes from two people who went to see Last Christmas at Christmas just gone.
Oh no, come on. when it gets to Christmas time, Matthew, you are watching this film because we're going to watch it again and we're going to talk about it on Question Cast.
If you can interrupt my tears after I watch Claws, then maybe I will, because
it's now a Christmas staple watching Last Christmas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, everyone
shocking.
else in the cinema were all coupled up. And there was me and Andy at not at the back, halfway up the cinema, and kind of giggling and kind of, we were the only ones paying any attention to the screen. Let's put it that way.
Oh, okay.
He was very tongue in cheek, laughing along at the poorness of the storytelling. But yeah, I don't want to spoil it, but I got very angry at one part. It was quite funny. But yeah, it's good film. Yeah, I'd recommend it. Yeah. My Good, Bad and Crazy. Good.
It ended after a while.
The Michael Bay segment, I thought that was well done. It looked effective. It was really well shot. Showed some beautiful scenes of the island. I'll give him that. I thought that was a good bit. Bad, most of it. The accents obviously were shocking. They had a really good cast and they never got anyone to put in a great performance. It's quite disappointing to have a film with Christian Bale and him get like 5 minutes worth of screen time for me. He was criminally misused. Oh, good. David Morrissey. Batshit. It was all a bit... I think it was just badly written. That it was crazy that they tried to shoehorn in so much and delivered so little. They wanted to give us a war film and a love story, and they didn't really give us either.
No, you're exactly right. You're 100% right, mate.
Right. So the two questions: did you enjoy this film? Matt, do you want to start the ball there?
No, I didn't enjoy it to the point where I'd recommend it to a friend, put it that way. I enjoyed parts of it. And if they explored those parts more, then I would have enjoyed it. But as an overall piece, no, I didn't.
That's fair. Stu, what do you think?
I didn't not enjoy it. It was perfectly okay. I think that's all you could say.
Satisfactory.
Yeah. 6, maybe a 6 out of 10, which ordinarily I wouldn't watch. And like I said, I wouldn't turn it off if it was on, but I wouldn't choose to watch it again. But it didn't offend me. It didn't make me mad or angry. Like next, but it was all right. That's all you can say about it. It was all right. So, yeah,
just straight down the middle, mediocre.
Straight down the middle, just the right side of mediocre to be decent. Okay. So 6 out of 10 for me. Just okay.
Fair enough. It's a no for me. I was bored for most of it, if I'm brutally honest. It wasn't bad enough to be The Room, and it wasn't good enough to be anything at all, to be perfectly honest. It's just a no.
I do think if I wasn't watching it with the intention of doing this podcast, so I'm not watching it and making notes and then trying to look into more of the elements of it, I'd have found it even worse, to be honest, because I'm looking for things to talk about because we're talking about it. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm watching it purely for enjoyment's sake, I probably would have enjoyed it even less, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that's a good point actually, because I do it differently to you. You two do stop films and take notes, and I kind of things that stick out to me, I'll write them down when the film's finished.
Oh, okay.
I've always done it that way. I always did it that way at uni, but with this, there's probably 4 sentences that I wrote down. And a lot of it, I just keep in my head anyway. But just as bullet points, there's 4 things, whereas everything else is normally a whole sheet.
Yeah.
And I think that it kind of sums it up that there's nothing to talk about, even though we've gone nearly 45 minutes on this.
Yeah. So the other question, is Nick Cage good or bad? Stu?
Well, in this, you've got to say bad, didn't you? Because he just couldn't do what he was supposed to do. As simple as that. He wasn't believable as a captain. He wasn't really believable as a musician, and he wasn't believable as an Italian. So no.
Matt?
Penelope Ford, super bad. Simple as that, mate.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I've gone for bad. Don't get me wrong, the film doesn't play to his particular skill set, but there was nothing unique about his performance. He just phoned it in. But I do think he'd learned how to play mandolin. I'm sure I read that he learned how to play it. So kudos to him for that, but that's not enough to make it a good film for me, or a good performance. So yeah, let's leave that shit alone and let's move on to City of Angels.
When they ask me what I like the best, I'll tell them it was you.
So, much like Face Off and Captain Corelli's Mandolin, the film starts with Nicolas Cage staring at a child dying. As the child slips away, she appears stood next to Cage, where he asks her about her life. What was your favourite thing? Which she confirms as pyjamas. I mean, I love a good set of PJs, but is that really the best thing that we can all think of? Bit strange. True. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't think I've worn pajamas since I was about. I'm trying to think. I had some. How has it turned into this already? I had some brown. It was like brown kind of tartan like things. You know, the ones that like Mr. Bean like, that was buttoned down the middle. That was the last pair I had, and I was probably about 11 years old. And to be fair, I did love them. So if you are a child and you've just been killed, maybe you do think about pajamas straight away.
Maybe if you'd have gone when you were 11, they would have been your favourite thing. Nick Cage then accompanies the child into the great beyond even. Cut to Dr. Maggie Rice, played by Meg Ryan, who looks absolutely incredible in this film. I don't want to get into like pervy territory, but
damn boys,
she was stunning back then, and you can see like what Hollywood does to quote unquote women of a certain age, where they feel desperate and they have to go through all of this to remain attractive enough. But you see it, and she was stunning. And spoiler, I think she's probably the best thing in this film, if I'm perfectly honest.
Well, yeah.
We'll agree to disagree as we thrash this out, I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you look at her now, and she looks like she's wearing about 4 snakes, like stitched together on her face. She's just ruined herself.
Yeah, and it's such a shame to see when. But I mean, I know we're not ones to talk, but I just think the Hollywood system, it really does chew people up and spit them out, and it seems to be a lot harder for women to get through it than it does for men to grow old gracefully. But yep, she's just about to perform surgery on a guy, but apparently he wants to meet her first. I thought this was then going to go to like the waiting room where she would have a conversation, but no, this is in the actual surgery theatre with the guy on gas, like literally about to pass out, and he just stares at her and then just conks out. What the fuck was that about?
Yeah, I didn't understand that. I thought I'd missed something here. I thought I mustn't have been paying attention. I must have. This is building something, and I just didn't get it. I didn't get it at all. But this will be a running theme in this film for me, unfortunately.
Have either of you been had surgery where you've been knocked out though?
Yes, very very recently, yeah.
And did they offer you the chance to talk to your doctor?
I knew the doctor beforehand because I had like consultations with him and stuff like that. All I know is I couldn't believe it wasn't the gas that knocks you out. and so I had a right panic. So it's like a person at the side.
Do you have a mallet?
No, it's a person on the side with a little plunger that plunges like not the anaesthetic or whatever it is, the agent that puts you to sleep. Because they put the mask on my face, but it was half cocked. So, like, it wasn't fully over my face, and I thought to myself, what the hell is going on here? Like, I'm not going to fall asleep. It's going to be like that terrible film that I can't remember when the guy wakes up during the surgery, and I'm going to feel it. Yeah, but I don't know. Like, you tell me, Stu, is it normal to speak to you, like, to be introduced to the person that's going to be splicing you open, or?
Well, when I had my snip, this is exactly what happened. They said, "Do you want to meet the doctor who's going to be doing the procedure?" So they asked me, and well, I'm lying here. He might as well. So she came in, and I wasn't like in a waiting room or anything, but they did give me the option. So that never crossed my mind. I just thought, well, this is normal. This must happen to everyone.
Well, when I had my knee operation, the doctor came in and drew on my knee and said, "We'll be doing X, Y, and Z." So when I then went through to because you go through to a different room before you wheeled into the theatre, and I remember they put the stent in my hand, and I was at uni at the time, and I was telling them I did film studies, and I could just feel it almost felt like a spider crawling up the inside of my arm, a cold spider. And I was talking about Robert De Niro, and then I just went, and that's all I can remember. Yeah,
it's horrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not great. So where am I? Okay, so Nick Cage is playing the angel Seth. Seth is a weird name for an angel. I don't know why. I just struggled with that.
This isn't a stoner movie. This is a love fantasy. So it is a strange name.
And Seth is there in the surgery theatre, waiting for this man to lose his battle. Seth is impressed with Dr. Meg Ryan as she battles to save his life. Seth then becomes besotted with her, discussing life with his fellow friend Angel. Castiel, is that how we're pronouncing it? Played by Andre Braugher?
Castiel,
is it?
That's what it's supposed to be, but it's pronounced. It's pretty much everyone in Supernatural. They're all angels, apart from Seth, which he's not because he's a stupid name. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to be, but it's pronounced in a weird way.
Okay. So him and Castiel are talking about life, the universe, and everything. It's quite apparent at this point that whilst they watch humans 24/7, they actually don't know anything about humankind, which seems a bit strange. You'd think if you'd spent that much time around everyone, you would know sort of what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, straight away when they're sat on top of, is it the mole? What's the name of the cigarette company with the cowboy? Yeah, they're sitting on top of that sign at some point during the film, but they're kind of watching down, all eyes on everybody, but so far away from the world that they don't know anything about it. Was really strange, and we see that much later on into the film. I like the premise of them always watching. Actually, I quite like. I think it's quite a fun idea that they had that they did that quite well. Like they're always around but never noticed and that kind of thing. I think they did quite a good job of filming that. Unfortunately, they made Seth look like a pedo Neo from the Matrix with his black coat and just following children around, and that like the way he was staring constantly with a really expressionless face. And I know he had to be expressionless for the purpose of the film, but it was weird. It was weird. You didn't sympathize with this character, or you didn't think to yourself, there's going to be, some personality and story here. It just felt weird.
None of them seemed to blink either. They were all like proper staring at staring at everyone else.
I have a point on this.
But with this one, I actually delved deeper into it. I thought, well, because it must be a thing that unless you actually fall in love, you don't understand anyone. That's what I got from it. Being a love film, that's why they're all so like weird, kind of like Neo-dressed meerkats on the beach, just standing to attention.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it was hinting at.
So in my notes, a little bit later, I've just written the only thing doing any acting in the first 80 minutes of this film on Nick Cage's eyebrows. Because nothing else seems to actually happen. And when I read into it afterwards, apparently they were instructed not to blink. So all of the angels, they had to train in order to not blink whilst they were on camera. And Nick Cage got so good at it that like he could go several minutes without blinking. But then as soon as he becomes human, spoiler alert, he can blink all he wants to.
They have that conversation about tears and why do people cry and all that, don't they? And I guess
It's something I'll never do.
No, to emphasize that point, don't they?
Yeah.
There was one thing I wanted to it's more of an observation than anything. There was a scene where they're talking about one of the children saying, "What's the point in having wings if you're never going to fly?" And it's absolutely one of those didn't fucking happen things. Like when people say, "Oh, my kid actually has quite a strong view on Brexit." No, they don't. You know what I mean? It's just one of those. I hate those things like that. And this is one of those. It was it just stuck out like a sore thumb for me.
The whole film is full of those corny as fuck lines that.
Yeah, it is.
They're comically bad. I've written a few of them down, and we'll get to them at some point. But yeah, so Nick Cage then decides to start stalking Dr. Meg Ryan, which was a bit strange, I thought. And then he finally unveils himself to her in the basement of the hospital, which was creepy as balls. That was horrible.
Well, everywhere it was a completely white corridor as well, and he's there in all black on his own in the dark.
Yeah, she must have thought
she's just
I'm going to get killed. Yeah, definitely.
Well, she takes it very well that he's clearly a wrong-un. You know, like he knows her name when it's not on the tag, on a security pass, and he's always there. But she takes it, and I think to myself, you know, I'm happily married and everything now. But when I was in my younger days, should that be how I tried to? Pull back. Should I have just been as creepy as I possibly could have been and stalk people within an inch of their life? Because it works for Nick Cage in this, so why not? Do you know what I mean? It's just, it was very, very strange, very strange.
Imagine taking dating tips from this film. So we get a scene where the doc and her actual boyfriend, whose name I've already forgotten because he's massively inconsequential in this film, they seem really awkward amongst each other. And she's obviously already thinking about this guy who she only knows from him stalking her and him engineering a meeting in the library. But already she's thinking about this other guy, and it's quite evident straight out the bat that this boyfriend that she's with isn't the one for her. It's so signposted.
I thought that guy was her brother at first. There was that little chemistry between them.
Yeah. I think that's absolutely fair. And then we go back to the hospital where Dr. Rice is with her next patient, Nathaniel Messenger. Following his operation, he starts to choke, and she saves his life as everybody leaves the room, or apparently everybody, because Seth the angel is still there, but no one can see him. Messenger says a message that is confusing to anybody who would have actually been there, where he says that he's not going anywhere, almost like he knows something is going on. In the next scene, Seth actually reveals himself to Messenger to try and find out why he said this message, and it turns out that he is a former angel himself. I hated this scene. As Stu will definitely know, when they go to the diner, I don't like seeing and hearing people eat. And he has the wettest fucking mouth ever. It's disgusting. All fine and well if you want a conversation. Please don't do it whilst you're eating. It is disgusting.
Imagine if you'd been watching this film in that scene with people eating popcorn and crisps around you.
I'd have been furious.
And then there's a baby crying at the front as well.
Oh, I can feel the rage building up just thinking about it. It's just hideous, that is.
Yeah, but he's clearly fully into his food because he's only had. Well, it's never explained how long he's since he's fallen, is he? So he's enjoying every tiny bit of food he can possibly get by slurping his way.
Don't fucking do that, Stu. That's horrible.
Slurping his way through life.
Oh, God. Absolute fucking animal. Messenger confesses to Seth that he chose to be human. And in order to do that, he just had to fall. So on the nose, some of this stuff. We get 20 more minutes of pretty much nothing. We get Seth and Dr. Rice just sort of standing near each other, but not really interacting all that much, or showing us why she's falling for him and why he's supposed to be falling for her. What do you pair think? Was there anything? Have I missed something? Was there a great romance here, or is it just me?
I think she's kind of more intrigued of him because he's weird than falling for him for me. And that's all it seemed to be, that he's so strange that he dressed like that, just appears out of nowhere all the time wherever she is, says weird shit, and she just takes it all. But there's never any hint that she's falling for him. She's just kind of, oh, it's you again, hello. It is very weird.
Yeah, I'm still at odds as to. I can see why he would fall for her, because she's showing him a life that he has never experienced.
Yeah.
But for her, he seems a bit of an annoyance. Keep asking him silly questions and stuff.
Maybe it's because he's still got more, even because he's an annoyance and weird, he's still got more of a personality than her actual boyfriend. So.
Yeah. And her actual boyfriend, who she agrees to marry. Strange. Yeah. Dr. Rice tells Seth that she's going to go and be with her boyfriend. So he decides to jump off the top of a building and give up his celestial existence. The metaphor for falling in love to actually being jumping from a fucking building, that is so on the nose. And they're basically saying that falling in love feels like death. I mean, I might believe him, but it think, okay, strange. That it's not making people want to be in love, surely. But we're 80 minutes into the film, and we've finally got somewhere. The film's just, I think it was an hour and 50, I think is the time limit if you take out the ending. And we've spent 2/3 of it doing pretty much nothing, just treading water for me at this point. Yeah. But yeah, so we're finally approaching something of a story now. Seth wakes up as human and starts running around the city trying to find Dr. Rice. He gets told that she's getting married out of state. So Seth tries to hitch a ride and gets mugged for his shoes. I really like that. That really made me laugh when that happened.
Welcome to humanity, you bitch.
Yeah. He asks Cecile for some heavenly help, and he just gets bum rushed. Fucking great.
Well, they do a pretty good job, to be fair, of making us finally, now he has feelings, feel sorry for Nick Cage or Seth in this. You know, he doesn't get a great start to his human existence. However, they turn him into Forrest Gump out of nowhere. like I'm going to Reno, but I'm going to Tahoe, but I'm going to Reno, but I'm going to Tahoe. Like, they just have this, like, and even when that car pulls up to mug him, he even does the Forrest Gump hello kind of, like, they're already painting him out to be kind of prepubescent or have some kind of like learning disability or something like that, because straight, like, he as we find out a little bit later on, which we'll probably cover, he isn't the full ticket once he's human. He has some basic limitations when it comes to the understanding of how to operate certain things, put it that way, including his own body, as we find out as well.
So when he's saying hello to all them tourists as well,
yeah, exactly.
in the underpass.
Yeah, but we finally get a bit of Crazy-Eyed Cage again. Like, I feel like I've waited a long time after Captain Crowley's mandolin and then 80 minutes of this shit.
Exactly, running around with a bloody nose and kind of like skipping along, singing in the streets. Yeah, I think we needed it.
Definitely. But Seth finally makes it to Tahoe, was it, where he was going? I get confused. Was he going to Tahoe? Or
He was going to Tahoe. The trucker was going to Reno.
Okay. So yeah, he finally collapses at the door of Dr. Rice. She confesses her love for him, and he tells her that he's now human. They have sex, and as he slips little Nick round into home base, she tells him we were made to fit together, and I felt physically sick at that line. I thought that is fucking terrible. Who wrote this shit?
Yeah, even so, I was watching. I watched this with Sam, my wife, and even she looked at me and was physically repulsed. Like it was so uncomfortable. I thought my parents were in the room with me watching it because it was so uncomfortable to watch.
You know what? There used to be a thing in remember a Load of Bull magazine?
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. It's a Wolves thing for people who don't care. And they basically had this whole thing, and I remember it was a sketch towards the end of the run, and it was a woman with massive tits and a bloke with a massive beer belly, and the caption was "We fit together" underneath. It was by the cartoonist called Tony Eagle. It's got to be in the internet somewhere if people look for it. But that's all I could think of as soon as that thing came into that. That it's a soundbite of the ages. Let's call it that.
It's grim.
Tony Eagle cartoon from about 2000.
So from that point on, the film just pretty much slides through now. And the day after, she's riding a bike and gets killed. Like, honestly, this dude has just given up everything he's known. And he gets immediately shat on big time.
He does. But I've got to say, Andy, she deserved it. And I'll tell you why.
Go on.
Incredibly irresponsible cycling. No helmet, no lights. You deserve everything you get, my dear. She's closed her eyes. She got her hands out like she's in a Veet advert, or she's in, and she's, you know what I mean. And to be fair, in all seriousness, the bike didn't look that badly damaged. A new front wheel and maybe a new set of carbon forks, and that bad boy's back on the road. So
I mean, she didn't even look badly damaged, to be perfectly honest.
Did she? No. Well, this was my bad thing. The death scene. Where are her injuries? No head trauma. No internal bleeding. She's She's the most conscious alive person before death I've ever seen in any form of media, because she's just having a full blown conversation, and then like at the turn of the sixpence, she's dead. I couldn't believe it.
You couldn't even you couldn't figure out how she was hurt either, or whether. Did the lorry hit her, or did she hit the side of the lorry? But if she hit the side of the lorry, then surely that's not going to be that bad.
No. Or it's got to have been that.
Yeah, if you see a lorry coming, then you go into the grass. It's common sense.
Yeah. Because the lorry was reversing, and as it looked as though it pulled out on her, so she would have just slammed into the side of it.
Yeah, which
okay, you'd probably injure yourself, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And like you said, there was no mark. There was like she had a red mark on her cheek, and that was about it. Like, that ain't gonna kill you, Bab. You'll be all right.
Cold wet paper towel at school, and you'd be on your way if this was in the playground. So
absolutely, yeah. But obviously,
green ones.
Seth senses that something has gone wrong, so he rushes out to see her and finds her lying on her back, seemingly fine, barely a scratch on her, not even unconscious. I mean, my first thought would be, oh, maybe she's broke a bone. It wouldn't be. She's about to kick the bucket. And yeah, she's like you just said, she's completely able to converse with him. This is taking the
artistic liberty.
Yeah, absolutely. That's perfectly summed it up. But she knows she's going to die, and she tells him, when they ask me what I like the best, I'll tell them it was you. This line might be even fucking worse than we were made to fit together. Just terrible. We then get the funeral, and Seth is living his life after death, and is visited by his old friend Captain Holt, Cassio. Seth realises that in spite of everything he has lost, he would rather have had, and I quote, one breath of her hair, one kiss of her mouth, one touch of her hand, than an eternity without it.
But
The script.
on that though, if he was still an angel, she wouldn't be dead. So it's incredibly selfish of him. That's basically what he's saying. Is he'd do it all over again, and he knows she'd die. So it was a strange one for me. That was the first thing I picked up on. I was like, I don't know, are we playing by the butterfly effect rules here? Because if you're doing everything all over again, you know, she's going to die. So what you're saying is you're okay with that as long as you would be able to have the time that you had with her, which doesn't sound like someone you're in love with. It sounds like someone that you've got some kind of financial transaction with.
Yeah, it's very selfish, isn't it?
It's incredibly. One side note, maybe more for you, Andy, than anything else. Why was he dressed like Orange Cassidy? he had like, which is what I want to know. Or should I say, why is Orange Cassidy dressed like Seth from City of Angels?
Oh my god, I'd never know. I never even clocked, but yeah, that is spot on.
This might be how we can generate some listenership. Is if we can get a still from that photo and we get to tweet Orange Cassidy, see if we can get a retweet out of him.
It's worth a shot. We'll give it a go. We'll give it a go.
And even the written tweet will have more heart than this last 10 minutes of the film.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, the script writing post 80 minutes, it's almost like someone just thought, what's the cheesiest thing we can thumb in here, and we'll put it in. It's not romantic. It's corny. It's sub primary school bullshit. You know, it's awful.
For a second, when she was amazingly dead, I only felt quite sad for a second, and then it was back to this is nonsense. There's that word again.
Yeah.
6. But I don't know what it does change out of nowhere. I know it was a slow build up, and then again it's rushed, and then it kind of slows down again just to. I mean, we even mentioned about the Baywatch scene with the meerkats, the meerkat men, and things like that. There was a few things in it, even leading up to this, where it wasn't the best, but at least it was paced the same, and it made some kind of sense. But from as soon as she started putting her arms out, you knew something ridiculous was going to happen after that.
Yeah, you could see it coming a mile off, couldn't you?
Yeah.
And I was trying to think, is it when you do rewrites and when you look at things as a whole, would they have just looked at half of the script and not all of it? Would that even have happened?
Yeah, surely a good script editor.
Or...
Yeah, a good script editor would have looked at that and thought that line is just too much. It's not in keeping with the tone of the rest of the film, because the rest of the film isn't corny. It's not that cheesy, but then you get to that part and it is so hammy. It's terrible. And really, like you said before about the whole thing about love that they try and introduce through it. For me, they don't make love sound like it's something you want to do. Mm-hmm. They make love out to be more of a hindrance than, one of the joys of life almost.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it in its most basic form, love hurts, or in extreme cases causes death. Which, why jump headfirst into it in that case if you're going based on this film, really? In a way, from as soon as Seth becomes human, it becomes a tragedy for him, and that's the only probably part of the film I felt emotionally invested in. Yeah. Was actually, this is a proper shit show, isn't it, for him? So, not knowing the film, not having any clue about how it ended, I thought he'd end up killing himself, and then that would be the end of the film. I thought he'd want to try and be with her in the afterlife, and actually that's how we'd have her happily ever after. Not he tries to get his 500-meter swimming badge. Do you know what I mean? It's just the ending for me, it was next level of you're shitting me. This is the end of the film. I've wasted how long on this film now for you to hand me that. I was livid. I've got to admit.
I think it was the look towards the screen as well.
Mm.
Smile at the end, like it was like the end of Goal. That kind of thing. Like, yes, we've made it at last. But no, you've managed to swim in the sea with the cop from Die Hard 2, and that's not a good end. But it's still it's not next level. Let's just get right there. But it did seem that it played too much on the how do you say this, the kind of like the little things of being human are what matters more than anything else kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was too in your face to make any kind of real impact. If that makes any kind of sense. On that,
for presumably they're ageless or they've been watching for the whole of humanity's existence. How do they know so little about the people that they watch all the day? So, what I found, and again, maybe it's because I'm picking holes in it because we're doing this. Maybe I'm picking holes in it because I wasn't really enjoying it. But how does he know how to hitchhike but doesn't know how to spray a bottle of aftershave? Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's silly little things like that separate films, in my opinion, from being genuine pieces of film that you can respect. To like, you pick holes at it because it's so easy to. It's silly little things like that. Like maybe it's me. I don't understand it because I'm not clever enough to understand that actually there's something in that why he knows how to hitchhike but not how to spray a bottle of aftershave. But fucked if I know, because I don't understand. You know, it looks silly. It's silly.
Yeah, but with that one though, he could have seen someone die from hitchhiking. He wouldn't have seen someone die from spraying themselves unless they're like superhuman on Twitter and he's using like a lighter with it or something. So that kind of thing. You got to think if they have been around for thousands of years, it's never explained, obviously. You think of we've all seen Final Destination and the amount of different ways that people can kill themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've seen someone die from hitchhiking, being, I don't know, the usual trucker stuff, or just been run over or wherever disposed of, you think, oh, that's how you do that because that's how you don't die. Maybe that's the kind of thing. Maybe that makes some kind of sense.
Yeah, I like to think that the last 20 minutes were a Jacob's Ladder scenario, where when he jumped off the top of the building, he actually died. He didn't become human. He just died. And the last 20 minutes are his death dream sequence. I think that would make for a much better film than what they actually gave us in the end.
Yeah, and I think you'd come to, as frustrating as, you know, we hate that, or I certainly do hate that ending, you know, it was all a dream. But in this scenario, actually, it would have been quite fitting. Whereas the ending that we got given, it was frustrating, and it felt like a time stolen. This film is a time thief because I'll never get that time back. It's just one of those.
So this film on Rotten Tomatoes on the critic score got 58%. So it split the critics almost down the middle. What do we think the audience score was? Matt, do you think it was higher or lower?
Higher. I reckon people would have enjoyed this in a silly way.
Yeah.
You'd go the same.
Yeah, I'd say around about 70s, I suppose.
82% audience score.
Jesus. Yeah. Whoa. I wouldn't have thought that.
The budget was a $55 million, so it was actually $2 million cheaper than Captain Corelli's. Stu, would you like to have a guess at the box office return?
Well, if you had that kind of audience response on there, then but quad that, maybe?
Matt, what do you think?
300?
120 back.
Stu was closest with $198.7 million. It was a smash hit.
We're in a mugs game.
I know, yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. It made some serious dough back then. I mean, I don't want to sound sexist, but I imagine this was very much geared towards a female audience. And most of the people, when I've mentioned about doing a Nick Cage podcast, when I've been talking to women about it, have you done City of Angels yet? Every woman I know seems to know about City of Angels.
Again, look at that.
Airbrushed to fuck that picture is.
Yeah, there won't be two worse cover arts in this when we do these pods at all than the two that we've got with these two films.
And you look at the tagline. She didn't believe in angels until she fell in love with one. Says all you need to know.
Stu, have you done any ASMR? I'm tingling all over the place.
Well, now you mention this,
we fit together.
We fit together like a glove. See, that would have been a better line. It's clearly a date film, mate. That's exactly what it is, and people were dragged to it. No action in this one, though, sadly. But no, you can see from that if you take it as a chick flick, it's all right. That's what I thought it would be to start with. So that's what my expectations were. Yeah,
I mean, for me, film-wise, it's not the same. But The Greatest Showman, that is an absolutely dog shit film. It's terrible. But when I got dragged to go and see it, the audience was full, and it was about 2 to 3 months after it had released, and it was full with mostly women. It obviously chimes with a certain section of society, and I think this film must have done the same.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we all like, we all is terrible because I don't, and I don't think you will, Andy. I'm not so sure. Like the idea of the afterlife and angels, and we like the security of knowing that there is a higher power or someone looking after us and looking over us. So to then have a film about that, I think actually gives people, like, it's an interesting subject for them to start with. For someone like me who believes when you die, and that's it. I don't maybe have like quite the same feelings towards that, but I think it's one of those things that will appeal to a female audience that they will get a kick from. They will have the kick from the love element to it, and I'm being massively generalistic here, but who doesn't want to be swept off their feet by a strong, silent, brooding stalker, pedo, Nazi, Neo in a big trench coat? Do you know what I mean? I've kind of gone off on a tangent here, but I think it has the elements that probably has made it incredibly successful for those reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. So, The Good, the Bad, and the Crazy. Matt, do you want to tell us what you think?
Good. No, good. I had, for me, Alanis Morissette in the credits is a massive plus. Because
Oscar nominated.
Was it?
Yeah.
I'm not surprised because it was actually quite a toe tapper, that song. I enjoyed it, and I'm a massive Alanis Morissette fan anyway. So that was one of the better things in the film for me. Bad, we've mentioned the death scene, her injuries, and the the how jarring and how hokey it made that scene. The unless I'm mistaken, there wouldn't have been no tears in the audience from that scene for me anyway, because it seems so silly for me. The Crazy would have been Nick Cage's post-fall acting, and that's kind of a good thing and a bad thing, really. It's funny to see, but it's also at the same time it turns him into a bit of a village idiot for the same reasons that I mentioned. He was a bit like Forrest Gump once he's come into his human stage. He's not the full ticket, but it was good to see that, because that's I think between the three of us, that's what we like to see, that crazy side of Nick Cage.
Yeah, absolutely. Stu, what are you saying?
Let's just get the bad out of the way. The fact that, again, it's films spliced together for no reason at all, because it's just that it could have done with He could have done with an extra 15 minutes, and just a bit more of the second act of the film when he's actually human. Just that I think would have made it a lot better. Just if you had a bit more time with them two together, then there would be more impact for me anyway. Yeah. Rather than her being a silly cyclist and killing herself, then if they'd have gone on, I don't know, if they'd have gone to a fairground and gone on a carousel or something. Obviously, we know children and guns around. But if they'd just done something else rather than just had a bit of rumba time, it would have been a bit better.
How much better would have a Rocky montage showing them for a period of time some of the things that they've done and actually properly fell in love with each other?
Yeah,
had an impact on then when she snuffed it. Do you know what I mean? Exactly what you're saying, Stu.
Yeah, I mean, even they could even have "You're the best around" in the background as well, which would have made it better. But yeah, it was just too rushed. But I did like it. I did like the film. I thought the actual scenes with the angels on stuff, and I didn't really think that he's actually got vertigo and he's scared of heights as well. So fair play. That it did make me think there should be an Assassin's Creed Angels edition. Look, to jump into some hay bales off some of the landmarks that they were on top of, and the whole blinking thing. Which, if that was an actual trope, then again, very well done for everyone. But there was a lot of very good, iconic scenes. Is kind of the wrong word, but how things were set up it was very well done in parts. The bad, like I've mentioned, the crazy was just how it only affected certain people, and how the rest of them seemed like in the library as well. When she was in the library, which we never even mentioned the library, which she was at the meeting place of what, I sleep here or I live here or something, whatever he said, and they're all there like peering over. It's like they've never seen this before, and surely if they've lived for however many years, this must happen quite often, or at least happened before. Obviously, it has. It all seemed to be like, well, why would you react like this, kind of thing. So that was a bit strange, but yeah. Overall, I wouldn't say 80s, but there wasn't too much bad in this for me.
That's fair. I think for me, the last 20 minutes were the highlight of the film. The first 80 to 90 just dragged and were mostly unnecessary. The last 20 were all right. Something happened and it moved on a bit. It wasn't perfectly executed, as we've established, but it was something, shall we say. Meg Ryan, I thought, was quite good in it. I thought she was the highlight of the film. The bad, I wanted more Andre Braugher. I like him anyway. I think he's a good actor. Big fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. So seeing Captain Holt in a film's awesome. But they didn't really touch on it. And it would have been nice to have seen more of Seth as a human interacting with his old friend who's still an angel. Would have liked to have seen a little bit more of that. And they didn't give us that. The other bad thing is the pacing. So as I said, that first 80 to 90 minutes was just dirge. And then all of a sudden it just goes up to 11 and zooms off for the last 20 minutes. That was a bit odd, a bit jarring. The crazy, Johnny Depp was originally considered for Cage's role. Like, Johnny Depp is, for me, he's one of the least interesting actors working. I just find him so boring. I mean, maybe he would have worked for the boring angel role, but I just don't think he'd have brought anything to it. And the other crazy thing is it's very rare for a romantic film on IMDb to have a body count. It's usually reserved for horror and action films. But yeah, we had a body count of 3. We move on to the final 2 questions of the podcast. Did you enjoy this film? I'll start this one. No. It was it was directionless pap for the first hour and a half of it. That's too long for the last fun 20 minutes at the end. There was too much crap before it, so it's a no from me. Stu, how about yourself?
I kind of did, yeah. It was sweet. I suppose I mean, occasionally I'll watch other things apart from Transformers. First mention. And yeah, I said the Katy Crelli's mandolin was tolerable. I did enjoy this in parts. To be fair, I did enjoy it quite a lot. There was a lot of problems as usual, but overall I did enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, Matt.
I enjoyed elements quite a bit, but I also, it's just not my bag. Like in general, it's sweet to the point where it's sickly. For me, in a way, there can be sweet, but in a more in a less obvious way. I don't know how that sounds awful, but so one of my favourite films is Life is Beautiful. Italian film, so sweet, it's giving diabetes, but it's done in a way that like it's not overbearing, whereas this is done in a little bit in a way for me it's so forced upon you that it was a bit too much. When I was writing my notes, I put down really that I enjoyed Captain Corelli's mandolin a bit more, but on reflection, actually going through this and talking about it, I think I enjoyed this more than I initially anticipated. Would I recommend it to the lads at the pub? Probably not. Would I recommend it to a couple? Absolutely, because I think couples would probably enjoy it and probably enjoy poking fun at it as well. And sometimes that's good enough. Do you know what I mean? If you find entertainment in that anyway, how many of our favourite films are absolutely shite? Loads. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that. And so a long answer to a short question, yes/no.
And of course, is Nicolas Cage good or bad? Back to yourself, Matt. Tell me what you're thinking.
I don't think there's enough for him to do in this to really make a decision on this, but I'm going to say no, because for the majority of the film, he is emotionless, and I suppose he does he do a good job of that? Probably not, because staring off into the distance isn't good enough to be emotionless. That's you know what I mean. So unfortunately, we're 2 for 2 on this, and no from me.
Okay, Stu.
Very much the same point, that there's not enough to judge, because it's the same thing. Are the two playing two roles? Are they separate enough from an angel and human? Which they kind of are, I suppose. But it's a big fact NA for me, because you can't judge it. He's not bad, but he's not good either. So he's all right.
That's not an answer. It has to be yes or no.
Asterix, yes.
Yes, okay. I keep going back and forth on this as well. The script obviously doesn't lend to stretching his abilities. We can establish that quite easily. But I did believe his childlike wonder and his innocence at times. It's a watchable film, don't get me wrong. But the script is bang average.
But to be fair though, she's excellent in it as well though. And it's bad for it. It's the same level for everyone. And no one puts in a bad performance.
Yeah.
She does have more to work with though, doesn't she? In terms
does.
of like the surgery gone wrong, and then the turmoil and the not being able to sleep thing, and then all of a sudden knows how to solve solve the baby's problems. And
she's got the meaty role, but I think for me it's 51% good and 49% bad from Cage. So overall it's good from me, I guess. It just edges it. That's not very satisfactory, but that's where we are. So there we are for the fourth picture part. I hope that you've watched and got something out of these films at least. Thanks once again for joining us. If you haven't already checked out our back catalogue, please dive in there and see what you think. If you've got any questions you want answering, if you've noticed anything in these films that we haven't mentioned, hit us up. You can get us on the emails, cagefightingpod@gmail.com, or on the Twitters at cagefightingpod. Please ensure that you've subscribed, rate and review too, please. So for this week, Stu, would you like to say goodbye?
Goodbye. Wear your mask.
Matt, would you like to say goodbye?
Bye, guys. Take it easy.
And from me, actually, you know what, fellas? When they ask me what I liked best, I will tell them that it was you. See you next week.
We were made to fit together.